Most people think burning fat requires punishment. Long runs, soaked shirts, burning lungs, an hour on the treadmill at 6 in the morning. And if you skip that, you assume nothing is happening. You assume the fat stays exactly where it is, locked behind a door that only opens with suffering. But here is what almost nobody talks about. There is a completely different system running inside you right now, a quieter system, a slower system, and it targets something far more dangerous than the fat you can pinch. It targets the fat you cannot see, cannot feel, and cannot measure by looking in a mirror. It is called visceral fat, and the way your body actually dissolves it hour by hour has almost nothing to do with how hard you exercise. What happens inside you during the hours when you are simply walking, sitting, sleeping, or just going about your day is a story most people have never heard. And once you understand it, you will never look at a slow morning walk or an early dinner the same way again. Let us start with where visceral fat actually lives, because this is where most people misunderstand the whole subject. Visceral fat is not the soft layer under your skin. That kind, the kind you can grab, is called subcutaneous fat, and while it matters, it is not the dangerous kind. Visceral fat lives deeper. It wraps around your organs. It surrounds your liver, your pancreas, your intestines. It is packed into a space inside your abdomen called the omentum. You cannot see it, you cannot feel it, but your body knows it is there. And more importantly, your body produces chemicals because of it. Visceral fat is not passive storage. It is metabolically active tissue. It releases inflammatory compounds called cytokines. It interferes with your insulin sensitivity. It tells your body to hold on to more fat, stay inflamed, and store energy as an emergency response to stress. It behaves almost like a malfunctioning gland sitting right next to your most vital organs. And the reason intense cardio doesn't specifically target this kind of fat is that your body doesn't work that way. You cannot point exercise at a specific tissue and command it to burn. What you can do is change the internal hormonal and metabolic environment in a way that makes visceral fat the preferred fuel source. That's the science, and it happens across a timeline that most people have never mapped. So let us walk through that timeline together, hour by hour, starting from the moment you wake up. When you open your eyes in the morning, your body has already been doing something important while you slept. During the last few hours of sleep, particularly in those slow, deep cycles, your body naturally dips into a mild fasting state. Blood glucose drops gently. Insulin, the hormone responsible for fat storage, drops with it. And as insulin falls, another hormone quietly rises, growth hormone. This is a fat-mobilizing signal, and it peaks during sleep, not during your workout, during sleep. It's already there when you wake up, waiting. So the first hour after waking is a window. Your insulin is at its lowest point of the day, your fat-burning hormones are elevated, your liver glycogen, the stored sugar your liver holds as quick fuel, has been partially depleted overnight. Your body is primed to run on fat, specifically on the kind of free fatty acids that visceral tissue releases when metabolic conditions are right. What most people do at this moment is eat breakfast immediately. And when they eat, insulin rises, the fat-burning window closes, and the body shifts back into storage mode. That is not wrong. That is normal physiology. But it does mean that what you eat and when you eat during that first window has more impact on visceral fat mobilization than almost anything else you do all day. Now here is where the slow movement comes in. A brisk 15 to 20-minute walk in that first fasting window does something that a hard 60-minute run after breakfast does not replicate as cleanly. The walk keeps your insulin low. It elevates something called norepinephrine, a chemical messenger that tells your fat cells to open up and release their stored fatty acids into the bloodstream. Visceral fat cells have a particularly high concentration of the receptors that respond to norepinephrine. That is important. It means they are uniquely sensitive to this kind of gentle metabolic pressure. The walk does not burn the fat directly. What it does is mobilize it. It pulls the fat out of storage and into circulation so that your body can use it as fuel. This is the part most people miss. Fat burning is a two-step process. First, fat has to be mobilized.
released from the tissue into the bloodstream. Second, it has to be oxidized, actually burned for energy. A slow walk in a fasted state is one of the most efficient triggers for the first step, especially for visceral fat. By the end of that first 2 hours of your morning, if you stayed in a gentle fasted state and moved even lightly, your body has already begun the process. Fatty acids are circulating, your liver is processing them, your muscles are burning a quiet mixture of fat and glucose for movement. And visceral fat cells, those deep abdominal stores, are contributing to that pool. Moving through the morning into hours 3 and 4, something else starts to shift. If you have not eaten a high-carbohydrate meal, your body continues to manage blood sugar through a process called gluconeogenesis. Your liver creates glucose from non-carbohydrate sources, including fat molecules. This keeps you functional without flooding your bloodstream with insulin. And this entire process, the liver working quietly to generate fuel from fat, draws on visceral fat stores because of their proximity to the liver through what is called the portal vein system. This is the anatomy most people never learn. Visceral fat is physically located in a drainage zone that feeds directly into the liver. When visceral fat releases fatty acids, they travel through the portal vein into liver tissue almost immediately. This is actually what makes visceral fat so dangerous when there is too much of it, because a constant flood of fatty acids into the liver leads to inflammation and a condition called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But it is also what makes visceral fat one of the first depots the body draws from when metabolic conditions are right. The liver is right there, the pathway is direct, and the liver is hungry for fuel in a fasting state. If you want to understand this intuitively, think of your liver as a furnace and visceral fat as a coal pile sitting right next to it. The other fat stores in your body are like coal piled across the yard. When the furnace needs fuel and conditions are right, it reaches for what is closest first.
You have probably eaten by now, and eating is not the enemy of visceral fat loss. It is the composition and timing of what you eat that determines whether your body continues to burn visceral fat or switches back into storage mode. A meal that is moderate in protein, moderate in healthy fats, and lower in rapidly digesting carbohydrates keeps insulin from spiking dramatically. A meal that is dense in refined carbohydrates, sugars, or highly processed foods causes a fast, high insulin surge that signals your body to stop fat burning completely and focus entirely on storing the incoming energy. The key phrase here is insulin response, not calorie count, not fat grams, insulin response. When insulin is high, fat cells are locked. The hormone physically prevents fat from being released. It's like a lock on every storage door in your body. Eating in a way that keeps insulin from spiking dramatically means those doors stay partially open and mobilization continues at a slower background rate, even after meals. This is why something as simple as the order you eat your food matters. Eating vegetables and protein before starchy carbohydrates blunts the insulin spike of the carbohydrates that follow. Studies have measured this. Eating in that sequence produces a meaningfully smaller blood glucose and insulin response than eating carbohydrates first, even when the total meal is identical. If you want to go deeper on exactly how your daily meals are affecting your visceral fat and your organ health from the inside out, there is a complete guide in the pinned comment called Body Hidden Signals. It maps what your body is actually doing with common daily habits, organ by organ. Highly worth reading after this. Now let us move into the afternoon hours, because this is where most people unknowingly undo their morning. Between hours 7 and 10 of your day, you are likely sitting at a desk, in a car, on a couch, and while sitting itself is not catastrophic, long, uninterrupted sitting does something specific to your internal chemistry. It suppresses the activity of an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase, which is responsible for clearing fat from your bloodstream and metabolizing it. When you're sedentary for extended periods, this enzyme becomes less active in your leg muscles, which are your largest muscle group, which means fat that could have been burned for fuel starts accumulating in the bloodstream and eventually gets repackaged and stored. Here's the part that surprises most people. You cannot cancel out 2 hours of uninterrupted sitting with one session of exercise afterward. The enzyme suppression happens in real time and cannot be fully reversed later. What counteracts it is movement broken up throughout the day. Even standing for a few minutes, even a slow walk every 40 to 60 minutes. That kind of regular, low-intensity movement keeps lipoprotein lipase active in your muscles across the whole day, which means fat burning continues as a background process, hour after hour. Think of it like keeping a small fire burning steadily all day, rather than letting it go cold and then trying to restart it with one giant match.
The afternoon also brings another relevant shift. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, follows a natural daily rhythm. It is highest in the morning, which helps you wake up and get moving, and it gradually declines throughout the day. But modern life often disrupts this. Stress, poor sleep, blood sugar crashes from skipped meals or sugar-heavy snacks all cause cortisol to spike in the afternoon. And cortisol is a powerful driver of visceral fat storage specifically. Your body evolved to deposit fat centrally, deep in the abdomen as a survival response to stress. In a crisis, having quick-access energy stores near your organs made sense. The problem is that your body cannot distinguish between the stress of being chased by a predator and the stress of a difficult work meeting or a frustrating afternoon of low blood sugar. Both trigger the same cortisol response. Both tell your body to store fat viscerally for quick access later. This is why managing your afternoon is so important for visceral fat, even if you never think about exercise in the afternoon. Eating something that keeps your blood sugar stable rather than letting it crash and then spiking it again with a sugary snack prevents the cortisol spike that follows a blood sugar crash. A short walk after lunch keeps glucose from spiking dramatically by pulling sugar out of the bloodstream and into your muscle cells directly without requiring insulin. This one habit, a 10 to 15-minute walk after your largest meal, has a measurable impact on glucose management and, over time, on visceral fat accumulation. Moving now into the evening hours 10 through 14 of your day. This is where your body begins preparing for something it does every night, something most people never connect to fat loss at all: repair. In the hours approaching sleep, if you have stopped eating a few hours before bed, insulin drops again. Growth hormone preparation begins. Your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, takes over. Your body temperature starts to fall slightly, and your metabolism quietly shifts toward overnight repair, cellular cleanup, and fat mobilization as the primary fuel for these maintenance processes. The timing of your last meal is one of the most underrated factors in visceral fat reduction. Eating a large, high-carbohydrate meal late at night causes a big insulin spike at exactly the moment when your body is preparing to shift into fat-burning mode. Insulin effectively locks your body out of fat-burning mode for the first several hours of the night, which is some of the most potent fat mobilization time in your entire cycle. Research has consistently shown that the same total calories consumed earlier in the day produce less fat accumulation than the same calories consumed late at night. The biological context changes everything. If your last meal is finished 2 to 3 hours before sleep, by the time you actually fall into deep sleep, your insulin is low, your growth hormone is rising, and your body is free to use stored fat as its fuel source for all the overnight work it does. Overnight fasting, even just 12 hours from your last meal to your first, is enough to produce a meaningful hormonal shift toward fat burning. Not extreme fasting, just the natural overnight window, protected by not eating late and not breaking the fast too early. Now let us talk about what actually happens inside that sleep window, because this is the part almost nobody explains. During deep sleep, between hours 12 and 16 of your overall timeline from waking, your body enters what is sometimes called the overnight maintenance phase. Your cells are running cleanup operations. Damaged proteins are being removed. Inflammation is being cleared. Your brain is consolidating memories. And all of these processes cost energy. Without incoming glucose from food, the body draws this fuel from stored fat. Visceral fat is metabolically very active. It turns over faster than subcutaneous fat. This means it responds to metabolic conditions more quickly, both when you are storing fat and when you are releasing it. During an overnight fast in good sleep conditions, visceral fat contributes meaningfully to the free fatty acids your body uses for cellular repair. There's also a process called autophagy, a cellular recycling system that activates more strongly in a fasted state during sleep. Your body essentially breaks down old, damaged cellular material and repurposes it. Visceral fat cells are not immune to this process, and consistently supporting autophagy through regular overnight fasting windows contributes to the gradual reduction of this deep fat over weeks and months. The full picture across all these hours is this: your body does not need you to sprint on a treadmill to access and reduce visceral fat. It needs the hormonal conditions that allow fat mobilization to happen. Low insulin at the right times. Regular gentle movement that keeps fat-burning enzymes active. Reduced cortisol through better blood sugar management and stress reduction. Protected sleep windows where growth hormone can peak and overnight fat oxidation can occur. And a consistent overnight fast that keeps the repair and fat-burning cycles running without interruption. This is what the hour-by-hour timeline actually looks like when it is working in your favor. Not a punishment, a system. A coordinated sequence of metabolic shifts that builds and compounds across each day and each night. What changes this picture is not lack of exercise. It is chronic insulin elevation. It is late-night eating. It is broken sleep. It is the blood sugar roller coaster of high-sugar snacks. It is uninterrupted sitting. These are the actual blockers, and none of them require a gym to fix. The most powerful daily protocol for visceral fat is simple enough to describe in 3 minutes. Avoid eating for 1 to 2 hours after waking and take a short walk during that window. Eat meals that prioritize protein and vegetables before starchy carbohydrates. Move briefly every hour during sedentary periods. Eat your last meal 2 to 3 hours before sleep. Protect 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That's the framework. And inside that framework, your body runs the actual fat-burning process by itself, quietly, across every hour of your day and night. No intense cardio required. Not because cardio is bad, but because the real driver of visceral fat reduction is hormonal and metabolic, and you have far more control over that environment through daily habits than any single workout session. Visceral fat is not permanent. It is responsive. It responds to the internal conditions you create, hour by hour, meal by meal, sleep cycle by sleep cycle. The body has been running this system your entire life. Most people just never knew the timeline.
If you want to understand the other signals your body is sending you through its daily rhythms, the complete Body Hidden Signals Guide is in the pinned comment below. It goes into exactly what your organs are experiencing through your common habits, and it connects the kind of science from this video into something you can actually use every day. Your body has been speaking to you this whole time. Now you know a little more of the language.